It's Ivan from Ivan Does Stuff. Now, I've been away for ages, to which some of you will be going, yay, thank God he's been away for ages. Others might be going, meh, he's been away for ages. Others might be sad. So, apologies. What have I been doing? Nothing amazing. I've just been doing procrastination, which is one of my favourite hobbies. I do it a lot. I find it buys the time, you know. Anyway, so I've been putting off doing this video for a lot of reasons, none of which make any sense. Anyway, I'm doing it now. You may notice at the front of the video there's some new titles. They were done by my friend Phil, who I did a podcast with recently, and he very kindly did some titles for me, which is great. I was going to kind of end what I was talking about in the last, I'm going to call it a series, that's a bit pretentious, but it's a bit, and then have a gap and do a whole new bit of content, but I'm just going to carry on. So let's call this series 2. I left you on a cliffhanger. So the one today, I'm just going to get straight into it, is about my BMW650, the bike that I shouldn't have bought, or rather is the bike I would have never bought and then have bought and then loved it. So I'm not going to digress, I'm just going to stop this bit of video and then do a talk through. Okay, bye people, and then I'll be back. So this is not like the shortest video on earth, I'm just kind of like an editing segue, but edit. So here we are, BMW F650 in orange. Now, I don't think they ever made it in this colour. My friend Andy had it painted in this colour, but this is my favourite colour of all time. I'll just give you a quick tour of the bike. So it's it's a single cylinder, Rotax engine, sort of enduro thing. Now, BMW always made bikes with shaft driven bikes. This was, I think, the first bike since the 1960s that they'd made with a chain. Now, the thing about this bike is it's actually an Aprilia. I think, from what I've read, BMW wanted to make a smaller enduro bike to kind of cover off that market, because I think up until this point most of the stuff they made was pretty big, pretty hefty, flat twins, etc., and they wanted something that was a bit smaller, a bit cheaper, etc. So in essence what they did was nab the Aprilia Pegaso or whatever it's called, I don't know, design, do a few tweaks, change the engine slightly, and away you go. Now, the thing about this bike I like is it is so easy to ride. Now, I'm going to just do a quick flip round to my TL. There we go. My TL, which is in a state of disrepair, basically a super bike, low bars, high pegs. Now, actually, this bike gets a lot of bad press, which I've talked about before, but actually it's actually pretty easy to ride. But what's great about the F650 is it's actually a relatively low seat. It's got low pegs. You can almost not be in the wrong gear because the gear ratios are so wide. The engine's really tractable. The bars are wide. With this fairing, like with this screen, you get quite a lot of protection, which is good. Now, they do two flavours of this bike. Now, this is a bit of a hybrid of the two. They do the Fundero, which has got the high screen and a 19-inch front wheel, and then they did the Strada, which is what this is, with the 18-inch front wheel. I'm pointing to the wheel in case you don't know what the front wheel looks like. It's that. But they do it with a short screen. Now, this one I think is the best combination. So it's had a higher screen put in, which I actually think it improves the look slightly. It also gives you a bit more protection. But it's got the smaller road-based wheel. To be fair, I'm not really going to do anything more than gravel tracking on it, so that's fine. So let's go around the bike. It's a 650 single. The engine is made by Rotax. It's a 4-valve head. It's actually a really quite complex engine in the sense it's a 4-valve head, twin spark plug, twin carburettor, single. Produces about 50 horsepower. I think officially it's 48 horsepower. And about 44 foot-pounds of torque. So with that amount of torque on a bike that stock weighs 173 kilos, you really almost don't need to change gear even in top. It's not massively quick. I think officially the top speed is about 110, 115 miles an hour, but it can sit at 80 all day, every day. It's, you know, dead simple. The seat's nice and comfy. As I say, it's relatively low. Not had a pillion on it. I've actually taken the pillion rests off because I don't like taking pillions on. It also makes it a bit lighter, which I'll come on to in a minute. It's got a really nice platform for either a box or a bag, and it's a good size, and it's quite a pretty design. The rest of it is pretty standard. I'm going to go up to the front here, and then I'll go through a few of the mods I've done. So one of the things that's interesting, I think, is it comes with an analog clock. So you can see it's 11:10. Right. Now, the rest of Europe and America, that dial there was actually a water temperature dial, which is, I initially thought would be more useful, but actually having that clock there is fantastic, because you've got a water warning light there. So do you really need a temperature gauge as well? I don't know. Dials, dead easy to look at. Clocks are, again, really quite straightforward. They remind me a little bit of sort of British sports car clocks, but really easy to read, really easy to look at. This one comes with heated, these are BMW's official heated grips, which are actually really good, almost too hot on the highest setting, almost. Mirrors are great, there's my hand. They're actually really good once you get them set up properly, fantastic. It's got a 17, I think it's a 17.5 litre tank. I get about, I think it was 45 to 47 to the gallon out of this, which really means I think I got 140 miles before it needed to fill up. So in theory you get 160 plus out of it, depending on how you're riding. The ride that I did that test on was a complete mix of fast roads, like A roads, bit of motorway, some B roads, and I'd only just got the bike, so I was, you know, I wouldn't have been riding it properly. Negative bits on it, probably the brakes are not great. When I got it, I had to slow down properly. Bear in mind, as I think I've said before, I was about 20 stone. You had to front brake, rear brake and downshift on every brake because they were really soft. I've actually now done a full clean on the brakes, and it is actually it's a twin pot Brembo. I've done a full clean on the clean and service on the brakes. I put a braided hose in, obviously new pads, etc. I haven't done the back one yet. The back brake's quite good, but that has in the main taken it probably from a 3 out of 10 bike in terms of brakes to maybe a 6. I have looked at putting either a 4-pot caliper on the front or double disc. It's not worth it. People are saying out there, oh well, it'll be over braked. I don't think that's the case. I just don't think it's worth doing. Probably the only mod that I would do is maybe put a slightly better disc on. Talking the brakes, the other mod I made was, I've got quite short fingers, and the original lever had no adjustment, and I was at full stretch to hold it. So after a bit of research, I discovered that it's the same brake master cylinder, or the same design as the 916 and 748 Ducatis, and you can get a patent lever which has got the full range of adjustment on there. So I got one of those. It was about £10. Looks nice, and adjustment, I can bring the lever back slightly. I've solved the problem, but it was a bit of a pain. And I've done something similar on the clutch. I got an aftermarket 6-setting clutch. It's purely because although my hands are quite big, my fingers are short. Other modifications, this I quite like. Oil temperature gauge, which fits directly into the oil reservoir filler area, and it just gives you a little bit of a, you know exactly what the engine's doing. It's, you know, it's a little bit of a luxury. You don't need one, but I like it. USB charger, which I've run off, so it only comes on when the ignition's on, and that's primarily for the mod that I did, which was for a GPS system. You can get these GPS systems that mount here, but they're rubbish because you've got to look down. I wanted one that I could just literally glance down without having to take my eyes off the road, so that's why that's there. This little thing here, which I need to remount at the back because it's coming off slightly, is a gear shift indicator. I try to make it look as factory as possible. It's not 100% accurate because sometimes it doesn't quite go into gear, but 90% of the time you get to know what gear you're in, and that's just one of these basic mechanical jobbies that runs off here. The reason for that, the reason I put that on is because the gear ratios are so wide. Wide, is that the right answer? I don't know. It's actually the only car I've ever come across where it actually needs to, you know, it's very difficult to tell for some traffic to stop fluffing about. In terms of modification, so I've actually knocked, I think I said before it was 173 kilos, so I've actually knocked 6 kilos off this. Why have I done that? Well, do you know what? It's a good bike, but it is a little bit, there was some things on there that were a bit heavy. So when I bought it, it had an Arrow exhaust on, so I've taken the baffle out of that, so it actually sounds like a proper thumper. It's got a Canon air filter, which is actually off a Saab that I modified because it was a tenner rather than paying 50 quid. I put slightly narrower bars on. These are Renthal copies from China, which are an absolute bargain. Again, instead of being 40 quid, they were about 20. Just brought the bars in slightly and raised them slightly, and I just thought you get a better feel. Taken the pegs off, I've put a lightweight stand on it. There's a few other things I've done. I've put an engine bolt kit on, as well as made a few modifications here and there in terms of bolts. I've also, by default, it will not start with the side stand down. You've got to have it on the centre stand. So I've taken the centre stand off and made the electrical modification so you can start on a side stand, which is not a big thing, but it does help. And you only need a centre stand to do work on it, and I've got paddock stands, so what's the point? So that's it really. That's the bike. I might do some videos on it as well later and whack those in. The the white item in the background is a defunct tumble dryer. It is not a integral part of this video, but there we go. Okay, thank you. Bye, people.